Welcome to Medicarians Live. I am joined by Dan Hoemke, the Western Region President for VillageMD. Dan, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Now, I think I've learned is that you went from the payer side to the provider side. It's really interesting. What made you think about that jump?
Well, first and foremost, it's not coming from the dark side to the
No,
to the light.
not at all. Not at all. Yes, I realize that question may have made it sound like that, but at the end of the day, no.
No, not at all. I spent the majority of my career on the payer side, both in the commercial space and the Medicare space. But I think, as we all know, healthcare is changing irrevocably in the United States, and I think largely for the better. I know a lot of people may not feel that in terms of looking at the affordability of healthcare and other things, but I think the thing that was really attractive is, for me, coming from Cigna, I had a terrific opportunity to actually work very closely with VillageMD as a partner. We worked with them actually on a national basis, but intensely in Arizona. And one of the things that was really impressive was the clinical quality that they were generating, which was so important to us when you look at things like star ratings and clinical metrics and that sort of thing. So profoundly impressed. And as a result of that, I think one of the things I felt strongly about is that if I was going to continue to make a difference in healthcare, one of the better ways in which I could do it and maybe kind of fill out that legacy portion of my career was to do it on the provider side.
Well, actually, how silly of me, though. We talk about VillageMD as though every single person has heard of it, and I'm sure quite a few have. But VillageMD has been called sort of the disruptor in healthcare, and so tell me more about VillageMD.
Yeah, so I think Village is a disruptor. I think they're also a provocateur.
Provocateur. That's better than disruptor in some ways.
I like it because of the fact that I think we're really provoking people to think differently. And one of the things that has been a cornerstone of everything that VillageMD has stood for from the very beginning is a real aspiration to transform healthcare in the United States. Now, a lot of people could look at that and say, well, other entities use the same words. But, I can tell you from a vision, mission, and goals perspective, it's something that literally is in the DNA of every person that works at VillageMD. And one of the reasons for it is because we got challenges. I don't think anybody would question that. And one of the things I always look at is, if you take a look at healthcare today, and it's true across all segments, particularly true, of course, for seniors, is healthcare is way too complex. It's not particularly predictable. And it's not affordable. In fact, healthcare hasn't been affordable in the United States for, 3 decades. The average cost of care for a family of 4 in the United States today, when you combine premium and out-of-pocket expenses, is over $35,000.
And it's just staggering.
It's totally, and it's doubled in a little over 5 years, tripled in a little over 10, and then combine that with the fact that 49% of the U.S. population will be chronically ill by the year 2025.
2025. I was hoping for
a little bit longer.
A lot longer, not just a little bit. Yeah.
No, and it's very troubling because I've been in this industry a long time, and I hate to think of myself as a serial failure, but to some extent, I don't think I've made the difference I had hoped early on in my career. And again, another reason that I'm at Village. But these are some of the things we need to solve for. We can't continue to see the erosion of population health. We got to figure out a way not to just contain costs, to reduce costs.
Well, and that's a great question. I mean, you opened the door earlier, talked about how it is too expensive. Obviously, cost of care. I mean, a provider is a key piece in that cost of care. So how can we start to make a dent in that?
Yeah.
Because no company ever volunteers and says, I want to make less money, please, thank you.
No, and one of the things I always come back to is that making money in a for-profit business is not a bad thing. In fact, it makes everything else you try to do aspirationally possible. You can't do those things if you're not a successful business, and I think that's another thing that is so much part of VillageMD is not about making money, but making sure that we're generating value to our shareholders and our stakeholders in order for us to deliver on our promises as it relates to clinical quality and outcomes and again, a better customer experience. But more to your question, the reality today is that
for sure you weren't going to answer it. And I was like,
it wasn't a hedge.
I was like, that's good.
No, I'll come back to the question. At the heart of it today, very honestly, it's more than just the doctor. It really, healthcare in the United States today, and again, particularly for seniors, really requires a team-based approach. And one of the things we feel very strongly about is that, while primary care coupled with the right kind of specialty care from a multi-specialty perspective is certainly part of the equation, the other aspect of it is that ultimately at the end of the day, we need to make sure we have an ecosystem that can support all of our customers to be as healthy as they possibly can be, regardless of age, regardless of their medical condition. Nobody in the United States wants to be sicker. And the opportunity is to help them be more successful with more of a team-based approach. But the one thing that is important to us is that it be primary care centric. We believe at the end of the day, having a primary care physician that is the quarterback, that is really organizing and helping to coordinate all the care is critical.
I mean, that is near and dear to my heart, and I would say that it feels like there is a real shortage of great primary care doctors. It seems to be the last one that people want to pick. And so how do you do it then? Because like you said, it is truly the quarterback there. And
yeah. Well, I think a lot of it, again, comes back to what's the kind of experience, that customers want to have, that patients want to have, healthcare consumers want to have. And at the end of the day, we want to be in a position where we can make sure that we're helping them to navigate the environment that they're in, both from a healthcare perspective as well as the payers that they're working with and their benefits and all that kind of stuff. But we also want to make sure that we can give them the guidance necessary to be successful. Coming from the payer space, I think one of the things, I feel...
And by the way, as you talk about this, we talk a little bit about how payers and providers sort of work together, and how is it, it clearly sounded like there was a different relationship when you were on the payer side. And so, would you also sort of weave that in there?
Yeah, absolutely. And it starts in many instances, keep in mind, the majority of people get their health care paid for through some kind of insurance entity or health plan. And I think one of the things that health plans have done over the years is try to, take away some of the shackles of traditional managed care, give people more freedom. But in so doing, they've also created some challenges, because if people can just go, without referrals or any kind of management to any specialist that they want to go to, with no primary care helping them to navigate, there's a tremendous opportunity for, not necessarily getting the best coordinated care you can get. So from our experience, a major portion of what we're trying to do is to enrich that experience, but increasingly doing it in partnership with payers. Payers oftentimes get, clearly a bad rap, contrary to what many people think. They're not in the business of denying claims. They, interestingly enough, and Medicare is a good example, every year we go through the bid process on the payer side and make a determination as to where you're going to invest in benefits. And I can tell you across the landscape, there isn't one payer that invests in benefits that doesn't want those members to use the benefits. They invest in those benefits because they want them to utilize those benefits. They want them to benefit from those benefits and get value. So one of the things that we can do from a payer perspective, and what providers can do in working more effectively with payers, is to make sure that we help to optimize the utilization of those benefits. We make sure that we can bring to light benefits that could help our shared customers be some more successful in their health and well-being.
And then, I guess one thing to sort of sneak in here, though, is, VillageMD has been a leader in value-based care. And so can you talk about a little bit about sort of the work that Village is doing in value-based care, and sort of because clearly what you just said there touches on, right, health outcomes, and lowering costs, et cetera. I'll let you actually do the talking now.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about it that Village has absolutely been a leader, in addition to being somewhat of a disruptor and a provocateur, but also being a leader.
Now we have three things I like.
Well, and
innovator, right? Disruptor, provocateur,
all of those
leader.
Things.
Okay.
But, they have been a leader. And, part of the challenge, and, I think about the conference here and all the brokers that are here, and, how absolutely overwhelmed they are, with value-based and all of these entities, including VillageMD, that are, routinely knocking on their doors, trying to get attention, trying to compete for shelf space. But at the heart of it, the thing that I, make sure in talking with brokers is to help them understand value-based is actually quite simple. It's around trying to marry the highest in clinical quality and outcomes for healthcare consumers, along with affordability. And so again, it kind of comes back to this provider and payer relationship. One of the things that we're very proud of at VillageMD is the strength of the relationships we have with payers. And in most of those situations, we not only have shared goals, but we have common interests in terms of the way that we use those premium dollars effectively, and we have skin in the game. So many of our relationships, if not most of them in our markets, are risk-based, where we're actually taking risk on and the accountability to drive better outcomes for those customers.
Fantastic. Well, I have to say, I could keep doing this all day, so I'm going to have to schedule another interview with you, because this has been fantastic. So,
would be delighted to do so.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Medicarians Live.
Thank you very much.
Okay.